There's an old saying that beggars can't be choosers. Not too sure I agree with that statement, but we'll touch on that in due course. Now, I'm going to hone in on the stories that have been doing the rounds lately regarding some players that we have been linked to. Now, look, I think it's fairly safe to say that we find ourselves in a pretty precarious situation. We're 19th in the Premier League. Wolverhampton Wanderers are the team that are below us, and they're only 2 points below us. So it's not inconceivable that by the time the game against Brentford is done and dusted, we could actually find ourselves bottom of the Premier League table. Now, as a West Ham fan, I hope that that doesn't come to pass, but it is a reality that we need to face up to. Now, the two players that we've been linked with in the media, and it was referenced on Hammers Chat forum channel by Gonzo a couple of days ago, and Geo as well on their main Hammers Chat channel, and various other outlets besides that, that there are two players that have been linked with West Ham United. One of them is the Brazilian superstar currently at Real Madrid, Endrick. The other one is Joshua Zirkzee, who is currently at Manchester United. Um, I'm going to articulate some of my reasons as to why, in truth, I think these are two players that, whilst they are very talented players, I don't think that they're actually what we need, and I think it would be a bad idea to pursue their signing in the January transfer window. I may be alone in that, but if you're in agreement with me or if you're not in agreement with me, either way, I'd appreciate you getting your comments in the section below. Please also don't forget to drop a like on the stream, and if you have a hype available this week, consider giving it to this broadcast. Share this onto your social media platforms, and if you could also check to see if you are subscribed to the channel. If you are not, please feel free to just click the button that says subscribe. It's completely free of charge. We don't get your data sensitive information. It just takes this channel onto bigger and better places than where it is at the moment, and we thank you very much indeed for your support. So, as I say, Endrick is a player of immense talent, and I think that his potential is really high, and he's on an upward trajectory. I think it's fair to say he's having a little bit of a hard time at the minute at Real Madrid, but I don't think that's really a reflection on the caliber of player that he is. He was at Palmeiras in Brazil, which is one of their big teams. Incidentally, he was a teammate of Luis Guilherme. My understanding is they're actually really good pals. Now, whether that's actually a good thing or not, whether that puts West Ham at an advantage over other clubs, I'm not entirely sure because let's be completely honest, Luis Guilherme has not exactly had a rip roaring time at West Ham United. Indeed, since he's been in the club, he's already had three managers. Not a reflection on him, but I'm guessing that that sort of churn over of managers and different things and all the rest of it, and all the challenges of settling into a new club and learning a new language and a different lifestyle and different climate and all of those other things, it can be quite difficult, especially for a young lad of that sort of age. So I'm sure that Luis Guilherme has probably given, if there's been conversations, and I'm sure that that's happened. That's just the way that football works, right? If they're mates, they're going to have conversations about their job. So I'm sure that Luis Guilherme will have given Endrick certain little nuggets of information about what life is really like at London Stadium, more principally at Rush Green, because let's have it right. A professional football player spends most of their time at the training pitch, not at the stadium which the home games are played. So Rush Green, I'm sure that Endrick will have been given a little bit of a steer on the situation with porter cabins and things like that. Let's just move him to one side. Let's also talk about Joshua Zirkzee. Now, those of you that have been watching my content for going back to a previous channel that I used to inhabit might remember that a couple of years ago I actually identified Joshua Zirkzee. At the time was at Bayern Munich, which was his first professional club. I identified Joshua Zirkzee as a player to watch. And since then, he's gone on from Bayern Munich and he's gone on to play in Serie A for Bologna. Not one of the stellar teams of Serie A like your AC Milan, your Inter Milan, your Juventuses. They're your big teams in Italy. He didn't go to one of them, but he did quite well there, it's fair to say. And that is essentially what earned him a big move, big reputational, big money in stature, all of those things, moving him from Bologna to Manchester United. Now, I know this iteration of Manchester United is not like the Alex Ferguson era where they were winning Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues and FA Cups and all the rest of it, and they were littered with superstars. Manchester United is not in that guise right now, but their name is still a name that resonates around the world. They're still one of the top teams in terms of their name, in terms of their history, what they bring to the table in terms of pedigree. It's there for all to see. Now, again, same as Endrick, he's gone there. He's not exactly hit the ground running. He's had certain struggles. Now, to be fair to him, I think that a lot of those struggles are probably not just personal struggles. Again, they're probably interlinked with the turmoil that's going on at Old Trafford. You know, he come in, and I believe it was Eric Ten Hag was his manager to begin with, and now it's Ruben Amorim. There's all of the turmoil around the club behind the scenes, the Glazers, Jim Ratcliffe, all this, that, and the other. So it's a pretty fluid situation at Old Trafford. And Joshua Zirkzee is the same as Endrick. He's a young player. He's a talented player, and he's come into there in a very difficult situation. It's just not worked out for him. Now, aligned with this, obviously, we're in the situation we're in where we're really struggling, and we're looking to try and bolster the ranks. Now, ordinarily, I would probably turn around and say if we was linked to one of these players and we had a realistic chance of getting them in. Now, whether that's on loan or whether that's some sort of permanent deal, I don't know. But ordinarily, I would probably be saying that look, they're super talented players. I think my concern though is related more to the situation we find ourselves in a relegation battle, which I think we have to accept we are in. And by the time we're in a position to bring these players in, unless there's some real traction in the right direction, which I'm hoping happens, but unless that happens, then we're very likely to still be in that situation come January. Now, whilst I appreciate that they're not getting game time at their club and they will very likely get game time at West Ham, my concern is probably about the situation we're in that what a relegation battle demands of a player is completely different to what it would demand of a player that's at a club that's at the upper reaches and performing in superior clubs. Now, as far as that's concerned, I'm talking mainly about Endrick because obviously he's at Real Madrid, he's playing in the Champions League. Manchester United, although they still have that stature within the game, they're not playing in European football, let alone the Champions League. So they're a slightly different entity. And I'm just going to move Zirkzee to one side for a moment. I'm just going to focus on Endrick first of all. I'm not sure that he's what we need because I think he's a young lad. He's gone to Real Madrid. It hasn't really panned out for him the way that a lot of people would have expected. And now he's looking to get some game time. But he's used to playing, first of all, for Palmeiras, who are one of Brazil's premier teams. Real Madrid, we know what they're all about 15-time Champions Leagues, and they've won La Liga, goodness knows how many times. They're littered with superstars. And obviously, he plays for the Brazilian national team. He got his first international goal against England at Wembley a year or so ago. So he's used to performing in teams that are used to operating at a certain level and are used to having a lot of possession of the ball. They're used to carving out a lot of chances. They're used to being in a different space, in a different situation what West Ham find themselves in. And it does demand a completely different skill set from people. I don't care what anyone says. So for him to come in, I'm not too sure he's what we need. We need someone with a different type of mentality, a different skill set to what I believe he's going to offer us. Don't get me wrong, good player, fantastic potential, but is that what the type of player we need in a relegation dogfight? I'm not convinced. Also, the other thing is that truthfully, I think that probably our problems that we need to address in January are probably more defensively orientated rather than offensively orientated. So Endrick being an attacking minded player, again, I'm not entirely sure that is what we need. And the other thing I think is also is fundamentally who does he replace? Does he replace Crescencio Somerville? Does he replace Lucas Paqueta? Does he replace Jared Bowen? I'm not entirely sure. I really don't know who he would be coming into the team at the expense of. And then if I look at Joshua Zirkzee, now Joshua Zirkzee, again, fantastic potential player, young. He's a slightly different type of player to Endrick. Endrick's a lot more, he's more diminutive, he's a lot more technical, whereas Joshua Zirkzee, he's 6'4". This guy is an absolute beast, and he's someone that's more likely to go smashing through brick walls than to use the subtlety and speed that I think Endrick would be able to use. But again, with Zirkzee, I think he's still a young player. He's still learning. I think we need probably players that have been in relegation battles before and have negotiated it successfully. And I think that also we probably need players of a bit more, that've been around the block a bit more than these two. These two are kids, and you can have them in certain situations, but I'm not too sure this is it. I'm really not sure this is it. I think that we need players with more miles on the clock, a little bit more experience at negotiating relegation battles in a successful way in the Premier League. Now, then that then comes on to another question. Well, then who are we looking at? And if we are looking at a more defensively orientated player than an offensively orientated player, who can we reasonably look at? Now, I'm probably going to get a little bit of stick for a couple of the names I'm going to chuck out, but I did a little bit of looking up and seeing on who might be coming to the end of their contract at the end of this year. And a lot of these are just names I'm going to throw out as examples. I'm not saying we should go and sign them, but I'm not a director of football, but there are players out there whose contracts are coming to an end and are players that I think could probably offer us something. And one name I'm gonna highlight, and it is a name that is going to get me a bit of grief. I'm going to say Harry Maguire because Harry Maguire has been in relegation battles before. Obviously, he came through at Hull, Sheffield United. Um, or he might have come through at Sheffield United and then went to Hull, whatever. But he's had time at like a top stature club, maybe not in terms of performance, but certainly in terms of their stature at Manchester United. But he's also been at clubs that have been a little bit lower down the pecking order, and they're used to scrapping for survival. So Harry Maguire, John Stones, his England teammate as well. I know he's at Man City, but he would have also had time. He did have time at Everton, and again at the time he was at Everton, Everton weren't exactly winning Premier Leagues and all the rest of it, and playing in the Champions League. So he will have experience of operating at a team that is kind of having a fight for survival a bit more. As I say, I'm not saying we should sign them. I'm just saying there are players out there that possibly could be towards the back end of their contract at their current team that might have a little bit something to offer us in terms of that. I personally think that Endrick and Zirkzee, in the situation we're in now, they're not what we need, in my opinion. You may disagree. You may agree. I don't know. You've got a comment section below. But Endrick and Zirkzee, two wonderfully talented players, and in a different situation, I'd probably be turning around and saying it's a great statement of intent for us to be linked with players of this potential. And it is potential. They're not the finished article. And that's another risk. I think we need to get a player that's a little bit more seasoned, a little bit of a grizzled veteran. I'm not saying get a load of them because then you're going in completely the opposite direction from where we've tried to get from an aging squad to a slightly younger squad, and then we're going to go back to that direction. I think it's about balance, though. I think we need to try and strike a balance between getting the young, exuberant talent, but also getting the experience of players that have been there, seen it, done it, and worn the t-shirt. That's just my opinion. But whether you agree, whether you disagree, it's a matter of opinions, guys. You've got a comment section below. Give me your opinions, and I'll try and answer as many of your comments as I possibly can. Please don't forget to drop a like on the stream. If you have a hype that's available, please feel free to contribute it to this broadcast. Share this onto your social media platforms, and please check to see if you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button. It's completely free of charge. We don't get any data sensitive information. It literally just grows the channel into something bigger than what it is at the moment. Come and join us in this journey together. Thank you very much for your time. Stay safe. Come on, you Irons.